Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording this week's show on Saturday, January 14th, 2023, the start of the Martin Luther King Day weekend. It was 30 years ago this year, on November 2nd, 1983, that then-President Ronald Reagan signed the bill that made the third Monday of January a federal holiday in observance of the late civil rights leader, Reverend Martin Luther King. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was cool and well-deserved, but what was not cool was how long it took my home state, New Hampshire, to finally get around to recognizing this federal holiday. Care to guess how many years that took?
Oh, God. I think I've actually heard you say this on another show, and it absolutely chilled me to the core. But how many years, Jim?
17. We didn't get around to recognizing this till the year 2000. Now, mind you, I'm not sure if that indicates that a lot of people here who live here in New Hampshire were racist. Because remember, it's 23 years ago now. Maybe it's just that the people in New Hampshire don't like the federal government telling them what to do. Take a 3-day weekend in January. Oh, hell no. I mean, after all, we are the only state in the union that has a law on the books that says that adults are not required to wear a seatbelt when they're in a car. So that puts a whole new spin on live free or die.
I feel very lucky, Jim, to be recording this podcast with the last man to ever be walked off of World of Motion. You know, did you ask if you could walk through World of Motion? Because that would be my inclination.
Oh, no. See, again, we were on the load ramp going in. There were people in the attraction when it broke down that last time. So there were people who did get walked off. I was just not lucky enough to be there. But speaking of lucky enough, can you tell the nice folks how you spent the last 2 nights?
Well, it's a very Hollywood thing, but...
Yes, it's very, very cool.
Well, you know, on Thursday night, they had an amazing thing that was put on by the American Cinematheque, and it was John Williams and Steven Spielberg in conversation about their 50 years, Jim, of collaborations. And it was really wonderful. They went through clips of a bunch of the movies. They excluded some. Sorry, Hook fans out there. They did not talk about it. Hopefully there is video of this that I hope they will put online, because it was really an amazing conversation. And, you know, he's 90. Like, this is, I don't know how many more of these there are going to be, but it was really special and, you know, obviously super emotional and great. And then last night I went to a great toast for all of the kind of nominees from Universal, including our friends at Bad Guys and Puss in Boots. So that was really nice. A lot of really great people were there, including Mr. Spielberg again. So he and I are just on the same schedule, Jim. So
well, there you go.
If I run into him at the taco place down the street, you'll know we're really synced up.
All I want to do at some point in my life is chat with Mr. Spielberg about how Night Skies eventually became E.T., because I've got a copy of that script, and that would have been a hell of a follow-up to Close Encounters. It's like, yeah, not all of them are nice.
Yes.
Okay, before we get to the news portion of today's show is brought to you by Storybook Destination, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience every time, please book online at storybookdestinations.com. Okay, picking up with the news from yesterday, Dan Povenmire, the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb and Milo Murphy's Law, created a new show for Disney Plus called Hamster and Gretel. This animated series debuted on that subscription streaming service back in August of last year. Must have done fairly well because it just got renewed for a second season. Not really surprised there, but what was a surprise was the other news. And can you talk about that, Drew?
They announced that Phineas and Ferb is coming back for 40 more episodes, 2 seasons of 20 episodes each. They seem to imply that it would be a linear and Disney Plus debut, which is interesting. We'll talk later on the show about another show that's coming on Disney Plus that will be on, or another show that's coming on Disney Channel that'll be on Disney Plus right after. So I think it's going to be another hybrid type situation. But I had no idea that, I don't think anybody knew that this was in the works or was even being talked about. And what's interesting is that Swampy Marsh is not included in this well, they said we're reaching out to him about it.
That's important because Swampy and Dan co-created Phineas and Ferb, and they were partners on it right up until the series ended in 2015. I mean, they 129 episodes under their belt, but the characters never really went away. I mean, Phineas and Ferb were featured in the second season premiere of Milo Murphy's Law. They had a whole episode called The Phineas and Ferb Effect. And then 3 years ago, we had Phineas and Ferb, the movie, Candace Against the World, which was on Disney Plus in August of 2020. And when Dan was out doing publicity last year, he talked about how Swampy was off doing a project of his own that was being considered by Disney Plus. So I wonder what's going on there. But if Phineas and Ferb is coming back, Swampy voiced, Major Monocle. So, he's at least got to come back to do voice work on the show, one would hope. The show went off the air, or stopped production, in June of 2015, but we got these films and that sort of thing. So it's been 8 years between when Phineas and Ferb wound down and now this revival. And look, it's not unprecedented for a show to disband its production team and then get back together. I mean, how many times has SpongeBob stopped production for, as long as 4 years? There was a 4-year gap between season 3 and season 4, and then season 9 and season 10. And we don't even want to get into the whole Family Guy, or for that matter, the Futurama situation. But I have to say, how would you like to have been the guy at Walt Disney World who just tore out all of the Phineas and Ferb Great Adventure? Yeah, because again, DuckTales has been canceled. But yeah, that debuted as the new World Showcase attraction in December of just last year. And that got announced in 2019. Phineas and Ferb went away in February of 2020. And then that whole project got put on hold because of the pandemic. So what's the smart money on when Phineas and Ferb come back as an attraction in Epcot?
As difficult as it might be to get Swampy back, at least they're not having as hard a time as potentially Rick and Morty are facing when it comes to...
I was wondering if we were going to talk about that with this show. I'm kind of fascinated by the story around this story, about how the accusations have been bubbling up for years.
I was curious about the timing, too. Why now this is coming out? But I guess because he's got to be in court soon, right?
Tell you what, folks, we will do a deeper dive on this very same issue on the next show, because Drew and I didn't prep anything for this show about that, but we'll circle around to it, particularly after the court date. Now, to get back to the Phineas and Ferb stuff, this info broke at the Winter Press Tour for the Television Critics Association, but also at that same time, we learned that 20th Century Animation is a brand new Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie in the works for Disney Plus. What's interesting about this one, Cabin Fever, which is based on the 6th book in Jeff Kinney's series, did you see this as being positioned as a holiday special? Because evidently the storyline of the book features the Heffley family being trapped at home during a blizzard.
Did they skip a bunch of books? I thought they were going in order.
The two previous CG Wimpy Kid movies had debuted on the Disney Channel in December. We had the very first one in December of 2021, and then we had Roderick Rules just last month on Disney Plus. So I think they were sort of looking at, okay, we're repeating the pattern. This comes out in 2023, and December of 2023, and what would lend itself to being a holiday themed story. And evidently Cabin Fever was the one that jumped out at them. I wonder if they'll now circle back to the other 3 books between this one and Roderick Rules. But so we have this good animation news related to Disney Plus. So let's talk about the not so good animation news that we got from Netflix in regard to Dead End, Paranormal Park, and Inside Job. Had you heard anything out in advance about these 2 cancellations? Or
no, I mean, I was particularly worried about Inside Job because, as we know, Mike Moon left Netflix last year and is now overseeing a specialty division of Illumination. And so, to me, that made me very worried about the adult animated programming at Netflix, and I was right to be worried because, I believe Inside Job was even like tentatively picked up for a third season or a third batch of episodes, and it's not happening anymore.
We've seen a rash of these recently. The unrenewals, shows that have already staffed up and already begun boarding and that sort of thing, and it's like pencils down, walk away.
Yeah, you got to feel for everybody because now they're in a position where they have to find work when they thought that they were going to be employed for the next 2 years or whatever. It's really heartbreaking.
Absolutely. On the other hand, though, Hamish Steele, the creator of Dead End Paranormal Park, he revealed through social media that he has known for some time that Netflix wasn't planning on renewing Dead End. But Hamish goes on to say that he hoped that we could reverse it, change it, make something good out of it. In fact, he was so certain they could pull that off, he actually put together a writer's room for season 3 of Paranormal Park. And he goes on to say, we had scripts and designs and outlines ready to go. It was always the plan to give these characters the proper ending they deserve, but sadly the powers that be at Netflix didn't want any more. And he says, honestly, we were lucky to make it through everything that happened in the last few years. Steele has revealed that much of the material that had already been prepared for the third season of Dead End Paranormal Park is now going to be used for the third Dead End graphic novel. In fact, this series was based on the first 2 graphic novels to feature these characters. So in a weird kind of way, it's kind of appropriate. But at the same time, if we toggle back over to Inside Job, creator and showrunner Seion Takeuchi wanted to say, I'm heartbroken to confirm that Netflix has decided to cancel season 2 of Inside Job. Over the years, these characters have become real people to me, and I'm devastated not to be able to watch them grow up. And I don't think there's a graphic novel in Inside Job's future. And by the way, I want to bring up the fact that Inside Job was co-executive produced by Alex Hirsch. And my daughter Alice sent me this amazing video of Alex on stage last fall talking about working for Disney. Have you seen this, Drew?
No, I haven't. What is it?
It starts off with Alex on stage, and behind him is this projected image of, and it's clearly an Alex Hirsch drawing of Mickey Mouse, but like Mickey Mouse sort of like Zeus. I mean, this all-powerful figure wrapped in a robe, and then the very next image is the robe comes undone, and it's Mickey his standard size, but he's standing on top of like 4 rocks, where it's Mickey standing on top of your time, your talent, your IP, and just the whole notion of, and here's Alex basing on stage talking about, you don't want to work for these giant corporations. All right. They will take your property out of your hands and you no longer have control over what you created. And it was just sort of like, I'm sure
tell us how you really
folks
feel
at Netflix. There we go. On the other hand, there is some good animation news. Velma debuted this past Thursday, January 12th. What do we think of that?
I really liked it. Have you watched it yet, Jim? Have you watched any of it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying kind of this grim Funhouse mirror version of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? For example, the scene where they find the victim in the girl's locker room with her brain removed. And it's like, geez, I don't remember that from the cartoons from 1969. But it's been kind of interesting to watch the amount of pushback this has gotten. Like, it's the very first time anybody has done something disrespectful with Scooby and the gang. And it's like, do you remember the Venture Brothers episode from like season 2 of that show with the Groovy Gang?
Yes.
They're all traveling together in a van, and Fred is now Ted, as in Ted Bundy. And they're 4 serial killers at that point, right? They're not solving mysteries. They're actually going out committing crimes. This has been going on for years. Why is it suddenly a national crime to do something with Velma and Fred and Shaggy and the like?
Listen, on Harvey Birdman, Shaggy was on trial for possession. Remember that?
Oh, I love that show.
It's so good.
I still channel for Peter Possums. Did you get that thing I sent you? Anyway, also, we got a brand new trailer for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which I think the episodes start off on a Disney Channel. In fact, it debuts on the Disney Channel February 10th. And then these very same episodes become available for streaming starting on February 15th. But I have to admit, I love the look of this thing. I love the animation style. If the rest of the show holds up to this trailer, oh my God, this thing's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks really, really fun, and it does kind of channel that Spider-Verse energy in a lot of ways. But I'm very interested in what the rollout is going to be like for Disney Channel shows going forward, because it was always so weird. And we would talk about this on the show. You'd have 6 weeks of Amphibia on Disney Channel, and then there would be a drop of however many episodes on Disney Plus, and it seems like there should be some kind of day and date or much closer release between linear and streaming, because all the other channels do that. So it's not like all the HBO stuff is on at exactly the same time on HBO Max. So I don't know.
It is frustrating that Disney doesn't seem to have a strategy yet. Though I love that you brought up how Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur seems to be influenced by Into the Spider-Verse and that sort of thing. Because on the second half of today's show, we are going to talk about the info that Drew gathered for a brand new piece you've done for the Wrap about Sony Pictures Animation and what their slate looks like for the next couple of years. But first, this.
What I bought? A new Blink Mini 2K Plus smart security camera. What I got? 2K clarity sharp enough to see every detail of home when I'm away. Plus audio like I'm in the room, not with my bestie traveling to another city. Plus easy plug-in setup to install faster than skipping through podcast ads. But you'd never skip ads, right? Plus, I got all of this for just $49.99. Blink Mini 2K Plus. Mini camera, max performance. Shop now at amazon.com/blink.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
On last week's show, we were talking about Puss in Boots and how it had just become available on Amazon Prime Video for people to purchase at home. And you floated a very informed notion about why it became available that early. In fact, didn't the voting for the actual nominations begin earlier this week?
Yes,
Thursday?
they continue through next week, and they're announced on the 24th.
Okay. And again, it's just weird what will impact how people vote. Like, for example, we just saw Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio take home the Golden Globe for Best Animated Features. That's got to impact the voting headed into the Oscars, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think that, I mean, we've said it for a while, but I think that's definitely going to be the one to beat going into the Oscars. We'll see if something changes or gets mixed up, but yeah, that seems like the one to beat.
Now, you had shared, we've got the Producers Guild of America has also put out its nominations for this year's award for Outstanding Producer of an Animated Theatrical Picture. And I remember you talking about all 5 of these films, and here they are. Once again, they're the 5 contenders. Did you want to go through the list, or?
Sure. Well, I mean, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is obviously on there. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I loved and encourage everybody to watch if they have not yet. Minions: The Rise of Gru, which was kind of a surprise to me. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and Turning Red. Anything stand out in there for you, Jim?
I think you're not wrong about Pinocchio. I am happy to see, Turning Red still getting some love. And it's interesting to see Marcel hanging in there. If you remember when we were first talking about that last summer or thereabouts, it's like, it's really charming. It's different than everything else in the pile. And it's just sort of like, let's see what happens there. So at least it's getting its recognition.
I do wonder if they had, if Turning Red had been the Thanksgiving movie and they had actually opened it in theaters, I think it would be a much stronger challenger to Pinocchio.
But at the same time, do you find it fascinating that Disney's Pinocchio, the Robert Zemeckis, is missing in action? I mean, I haven't even seen that on effects lists.
I think it was actually buried at the bottom of the ocean, Jim. No one can even get to it to nominate it. What a cursed movie that was. But you're right. A lot of talented people worked on it, and a lot of people worked really hard on the animation and the effects.
Yeah,
and didn't see their children, and were working long hours, I'm sure. But
that is the crapshoot. And in fact, I've got my wonderful 2-volume set of Phil Tippett when he was at the Visual Effects Society doing a panel on evolution, and he talked about how sometimes when you work on a summer blockbuster, it's like working at Los Alamos, that you're on a tight deadline, you're working in much secrecy, and every so often you find out you're working on a bomb.
That's funny. I have a recommendation actually for you, Jim, and everybody at home to watch.
Okay.
There is a documentary out right now called Jurassic Punk that is about Steve Spaz Williams. It's available on paid VOD, so wherever you buy your movies on to watch at home, it's on there. It is wonderful.
I am so glad you brought that up, because I think when you were mentioning this on social media, you had sort of referred to this as sort of a companion piece for Light and Magic, that it was a part of the industrial Light and Magic story that didn't necessarily get the attention it deserved in that otherwise wonderful 6-part series, 8-part series. In fact, on your recommendation, I went and sought out the trailer, and holy cow, I mean, there's this whole, if you think about the work that he did on The Abyss, on Terminator 2, and then Jurassic Park, how he effectively changed the effects world.
Almost single-handedly. I mean, without him, those movies would not have gotten done. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see some sort of unflattering portraits of some of these people that have been rightly made out to be heroes in the visual effects community. Mm-hmm. But, I give Phil Tippett a lot of credit because he is interviewed for the documentary. Mm-hmm. And obviously there is a component for Disney fans because he directed The Wild, if you'll remember, that very dicey computer animated movie that Disney kind of acquired, or I don't know what the situation was, but there's a lot of talk about that in this movie and sort of what the failure of that movie did to him as well.
This has gone from something I was trying to make time for to I'll make time.
No, it's required viewing. He is such a character, and it's a little bit of an Alex Hirsch situation where you kind of see what people are really made of, and it's kind of a little disappointing, but he's a really fascinating character, a very kind of troubled guy, but his impact on the community and on filmmaking really cannot be overstated.
This is why you want to follow Drew on social media. You'll learn about this stuff early, or for that matter, you really want to pay attention to what Drew is doing over on The Wrap, because you do some amazing stories there. And let's talk about this piece that you just did about Sony Pictures Animation.
Did you like it, Jim? I have to ask you that first off, not to put you on the spot.
Of course I like it. No. I mean, but again, what I find fascinating is if we look back at the history of Sony Pictures Animation. I mean, if you were walking out of a theater in September of 2006, having just seen Open Season, could you have predicted that there was going to be a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse coming out of this company, which, as we were just talking about with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, the impact that film has had. In fact, I think when we've been talking about this year about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and how the look of that film got pushed, obviously on the heels of, wow, look what the guys at Sony Pictures Animation did with Spider-Man. we can do the same thing with the Shrek characters.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think there is a comparison to draw, because I think Phil brought this up, is that he was like, oh, I forget the artist's name, but the guy that created Cow and Chicken or whatever that show was, he did all the designs for Open Season, and I think you can really see that in the designs. And so that kind of commitment to stylistic, so as kind of atypical stylistic kind of vibe is very much present. And even when I was doing this, I was thinking about how Surf's Up is an animated mockumentary, and that has never been attempted before or since. Well, I guess, that the Olympic animal documentary that movie was kind of a pseudo documentary, but, with the camera shakes and characters addressing, right?
And they really lean into the conceit. I mean, how many scenes in that movie you have the person in the foreground talking directly to camera, but it's somebody in the background or action that's going on just behind them that creates the comedy or moves the story forward. Oh, and by the way, the name you're looking for is David Feiss.
Yes, David Feiss, yes.
There we go. He's the one who did Cow and Chicken and also the character design for Open Season. But I did not know that up until right now. So
there you go.
If you look through, again, since 2006, so that this is a relatively young studio. What really sort of turns it around for them and gets them on the board, so to speak, after, good Lord, close to 7 or 8 features, is Hotel Transylvania in September of 2012. And that's Gennady Tartakovsky, and it really breaks through for not only its wonderful, very cartoony design and animation style, but a really well-told story.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's a standard animation studio of our era. So if Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs succeeds, of course, there is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. In fact, I have to admit, I'm startled that we've got as many Hotel Transylvanias as we did, or for that matter, that Gennady stayed with it as long as he did. But now, having chatted with these folks about what the next 3, 4, 5 years looks like, what's your sense of where Sony's going?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to know about the upcoming slate, I think that I did the first interviews with the filmmakers behind Ghostbusters, K-pop, and TBD movie that we were talking around that will be directed by Guillermo Martinez, who was the head of story on Mitchell's versus the Machines. But it seems like there is that willingness to experiment visually and storytelling wise, but also, like you alluded to, Jim, there are certain sort of corporate interests that have to be addressed as well, which I think is what Ghostbusters is. But, listening to her talk about what this movie is going to be feels very much like it's in keeping with the original animated series, and that being an entry point for a lot of kids to what Ghostbusters is. So, I mean, I think they all sound really wonderful, and I just cannot wait to see how they are manifested. And what was really eye-opening for me during doing the research for this and talking to so many people there was the relationship between Sony Animation, which debuted 20 years ago, and Sony Pictures Imageworks, which debuted 30 years ago. And I know we talk a lot about visual effects on this show.
That's right, yeah.
But the fact that they are kind of two independent entities within this corporate environment, sort of as vendor and client, but also much more integrated, to me, that was a very interesting thing, because it's not like Disney where you kind of retain animators, year round, and if they're in between projects, they're pitching, shorts or whatever. They kind of have to reassemble teams each time, and then those teams have to interface with this other group in Vancouver. Mostly that is Sony Pictures Imageworks. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting kind of setup, and a very successful setup, obviously. But I was wondering what you thought about that, Jim.
Honestly, I hadn't flashed on that. But yeah, I mean, Sony Pictures Animation clearly came out of Sony Imageworks. And when you think about some of the projects they worked on, and the many breakthroughs they made there. Forgive me, though, for changing the subject here, but I have not gotten onto the Sony Pictures Animation campus since they put in that mural. Did you get to see that in person while you were there?
Yes, I thought. Did I send you a picture, Jim? I was like, oh, I gotta get a picture of this for Jim because we've been talking about this mural for so long. It's really beautiful. It's really nice. Yeah, I got to go back to campus, which was great. I saw footage from Spider-Verse as well as Agent King, and I think it's called Family Love. Is that what the Hair Love show?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that's the other interesting thing that you'll read about in the article is kind of these TV projects as well that are working with different vendors. I think Titmouse did, Agent King, and I want to say Renegade did. Family Love. You can correct me on this, people who are listening. But yeah. They've got a strong slate, and Jim, Agent King is just as crazy as we thought it was going to be. I will say that.
Oh, I was so hoping because I love the whole conceit of that. Isn't the leaping off point for that the whole Presley visits Nixon in the Oval Office and
But I don't know if the historical record will show that he had a chimpanzee sidekick who snorted cocaine and bit people's faces off. I'm a little fuzzy on that one, Jim. I don't know if that actually happened, but
didn't I see that Agent King actually had a launch date coming up?
It doesn't. I think it's spring 2023. They put a teaser poster out for his birthday.
I saw that. I just wonder, out of respect, maybe they're going to just tap the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
the launch.
We've got a lot of Elvis stuff coming up, but yeah.
No, I'm very much looking forward to that, and it's just sort of like, all right, I'm going to get on that campus. I'm going to see that mural in person. But
it's very funny because it's like, all the great movies, and then you'll see like, oh, we got a Smurf over there. We got a emoji movie character over there.
Don't they have like Wish Dragon and Vivo also represented in?
I love those movies. I'm a big Wish Dragon guy.
Every time I'm at the Gallery Nucleus site, I'm always there looking, for art of books and reference and that sort of thing. They still have the litho, an amazing litho from Wish Dragon. They also have a cloisonné pin of the character. And each time I've gotten as far as putting them in the basket and then just it's like, well, what am I going to put this? What am I going to do with this? But they are such a wonderful character, so ridiculously appealing, and it just sort of like, and that's Sony Pictures Animation. They did such an amazing job with that film.
Yeah, I have the pin. I love it. I love that dragon. He's so cute. It's so good.
He is. All right. Well, anyway, you want to know where Sony Pictures Animation is headed, head on over to The Wrap and check out Drew's latest article there. But also, if you want to listen to something ridiculously entertainment, you should also be checking out Light the Fuse, the podcast that Drew does with Charles Hood about the Mission Impossible films. July 14th this year, right? Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's still holding that date? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned because it opens like 2 weeks after Oppenheimer. And boy, Jim, it's going to be a bloodbath for those IMAX screens. You know what I mean? Ooh. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, I don't know. I need to go out there with my tools, Jim, and start building more IMAX screens or something because...
Weren't you talking about? Well, Drew earlier this month was pointing out that CinemaCon is April, right?
Yes.
Okay, in Vegas, and it's like
trying to get you to go with me, Jim, but
Well, I mean, I think it would be worth it alone to sort of seek out, the exhibitors, and particularly those who have a lot of IMAX screens, and okay, what are you going to do here? I mean, clearly one is going to be. You're going to go to see the Oppenheimer story on the big screen to see, that whole Los Alamos, history, that sort of thing. But boy, what happens if that is in fact a hit?
Yeah, I mean, it really does get screwed up. I know that, we've talked a lot about Lightyear, but that had its kind of IMAX release screwed up because Jurassic World was still taking all the good time slots. And it was like, I heard from people who worked on the movie that it was super upsetting because it was the first animated movie made for IMAX screens. And it's like, oh, they worked on it for 5 years. Oh, you get to see it at, 11 a.m. on a Sunday, which is when I had to go see it. It was the only time at the Universal City Walk. And, it was super depressing. It was like, so, yeah, be cognizant of where these things are playing. I think you've got another 6 weeks with Avatar: The Way of Water in IMAX, so don't miss that.
But again, folks, make sure you go out of your way to check out Light the Videos. In fact, anything interesting coming up this week?
Oh,
on the podcast?
Nothing interesting. No, I'm just kidding. We do our second interview with the sound designer for Fallout as well as Top Gun Maverick, and he's working on a couple of other movies right now called Dead Reckoning Part 1 and 2. So he is great. His name is James Mather. He worked on a bunch of the Harry Potter movies and just a genius in his field, like everybody on these movies, just top of the class. So and we're hopefully going to have a good Oscar nomination special coming up too, God willing, for Top Gun Maverick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Okay. By the way, we have a couple of podcasts here you might want to listen to. We've got, of course, Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have Marvelous Disney. That's about all the Marvel films and TV shows. I do that with Aaron Adams. Brian Gahn and I just did a brand new Looking at Lucasfilm. And in fact, tomorrow.
Did you talk about the Willow finale?
We recorded it before. So.
Well, okay. Before you record next time, I just did about a half-hour chat with John Kasdan about where the show's going. I will send it to you as soon as it's published. I've got some great stuff about the next seasons, should they be there, and yeah.
Okay, well, again, that clip at the end where Volume 1 slotted in next to Volume 2 and 3.
Also, how good was that needle drop at the end? Jim, I mean, come on, that was just
money for nothing.
Yeah, we gotta get that Dire Straits in there.
There you go. No, great fun. But yeah, also finally getting a new Universal joint out the door. Let's see. Beyond that, Drew, can you tell the nice folks where they can find you on social media?
Oh yes, of course. Drew Tailored, like a tailored shirt, on Instagram and Twitter.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media. Likewise over on Facebook at Jim Hill Media News. Let's see. Beyond that, if you could do Drew and I a favor, folks, if you could go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, well, not just the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, but also Light the Fuse. That would be very, very helpful. And if you really, really, really like what you heard here today, if you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, all right, that might finally convince me to pull the trigger and get that Wish Dragon litho and that Clayson pin that now Drew's got.
Yes, do it.
That's going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and Mr. Taylor and I will be back soon.